The following program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.
My name is Jasmine, and I am a recovering drug addict.
My name is Richie Farrell, a.k.a. the Old White Junkie.
And we are your hosts for Exit Team Nashua.
Our mission is to bring recovery into the living room.
Last year, over 72,000 Americans died of an accidental overdose.
That's almost 200 Americans every single day.
We will bring you guests with real-life experiences with addiction and recovery. Welcome to Exit Team Nashua.
Welcome everyone to Exit Team Nashua. My name's Jessie and I will be your host this evening. Tonight in the studio, I'm very excited to introduce Mr. Matt Ganem.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming.
Very honored to be on.
Yes, we're excited to have you.
Yeah.
So, there's all kinds of stuff we could go into. I know that there's a lot to talk about. So, Matt, tell me about, I want to know, I know you've been sober for
14 years.
14 years. You know how I know? Well, I know 13 because I play the Slain video for the clients and you're like 13 years.
Yeah.
And
I love, big shout out to Slain. He's he's one of the best people that I know. He's such a genuine, good guy,
How do you know him?
Performing. Poetry, spoken word. He knew my son's mother's family.
Yeah.
They're from the same part of Boston.
Okay.
And me being out there in the hip hop spoken word scene.
Right.
I got to meet him at a bunch of different events.
Yep.
That was before he was in recovery. And then more recently he wanted to get more involved. He took his recovery serious, but now he wanted to try to start giving back.
Yeah.
So, obviously with what I do, I'm kind of out there and in the public a little bit. So we teamed up for a couple of charities and just really wanted to, to try to inspire people. I mean, that's the biggest aspect of recovery is trying to, give it away to the next person.
Yeah.
And we both do it in not similar ways. The guy's light years ahead of me talent wise. He's incredible, but, spoken word, hip hop, trying to lead by example, you guys can achieve, crazy things once you get clean and sober.
So I run groups at a treatment center and I do a music therapy group.
Yeah.
So I tell the clients about you, and I usually play the Miracle and then I tell them a little, and then I do the Macklemore and the Slain video and I say, oh, there's Matt in the video.
Yeah, no,
but it's really cool. I tell them, this is somebody that's local and some talent. Look what he's done,
Well, that's, that moment right there next to my kids being born and being clean is probably the most, I can't even put into words how crazy that was. I was sitting backstage and I could hear them chanting. Cause it was at Pawtucket Stadium, McCoy Stadium.
Yeah.
And there was 10,000 plus people there.
Yeah.
And I don't really get nervous when I perform.
Right.
I've been doing it for a little bit, but I was oh man, the heart's going. I hear them chanting.
Yeah.
And I try to be serious, but I was out there with a smile ear to ear, to hear that miracle poem with 10,000 people chanting back. I wish I could bottle that exact moment and be able to relive it over and over again. It was some of the coolest things that I've been able to be a part of.
Yeah. That's amazing.
Yeah. And it's little words that I write that help me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Just to get through the day, ups and downs, whatever I'm going through, I put it down on a piece of paper.
Yeah.
And sometimes there's concepts, the miracle piece is a concept that a good friend of mine, Dana D. Ruff, who's a spoken word artist from Boston, he used to do a call and response. And that is I am A and the crowd chants back miracle. He used to do if you can feel it and the crowd would chant, you can speak it. So I got inspired by that and wrote that piece, So
have you written poetry your whole life?
Yeah. I started writing when I was a kid. I couldn't write a sentence, but when it came to poetry, I loved having a subliminal meaning of a piece. I talk a lot about females and the struggle of breaking away, which really it's about dope or vice versa. You know what I mean?
Right.
Having that metaphor where, you're writing about something, but there's another meaning.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just something.
Meaning, right.
Yeah. And then if you go back to I have notebooks from when I was in detox at 18 years old where I struggle with the word addict. Oh, that's not me. I'm not like them other people. And I have poems where I'm writing about it while I'm in, detoxes in the early days. I still have a notebook from when I was in the halfway house
That's
that I went through. I went through the Hamilton house, and they were like a bunch of guys that did 10 years in prison, big jacked up monsters, and I was 21 years old, and you remove the drugs from me, that tough guy, street kid, you know, willing to do all the crazy things that I did when I was getting high. It's like I'm scared, I'm terrified to like, you know, express myself or communicate on how I feel for fear of being judged and looked down upon. So what I did is I put it down on a piece of paper, and even to this day, it's still it's easier for me to communicate that way than talk about certain things that I go through.
Yeah. It's awesome. So
Yeah.
you got sober at 21?
21 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My previous guest got sober pretty young as well.
I know. That's one of my good friends that was your previous guest. Big shout out to E. Nels. Very big inspiration. I try to push people to chase their dreams, not just in recovery. You know, early on when I was going to places, it was like, I didn't want to just settle with like, this is what you're going to do every day of your life. Like you're going to have to do, you know, you have the ability to chase other things and chase your dreams and aspire to be something. And seeing somebody like Eric who's gotten clean and chase after music and the studio and stuff like that, like that's what recovery is about, is inspiring people to do better and work on themselves day in and day out to get to whatever that next level of life is. You know what I mean? And like, you know, for me, like poetry, being on stage and performing, there's a freedom in that. There's like that natural high that, you know, I can't really, you know, you take that leap of faith and do something like that.
Right.
You never know if you know, played it safe.
So how long have you been performing?
Probably, I started, the first open mic I went to, I think it was in 2009.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Oh,
a while ago.
Yeah.
And I went there with a buddy of mine, and I read through a piece of paper into a microphone in front of 4 people, and I knew 2 of them. And I was terrified, like shaking the paper.
Right.
You know? But somebody went up to me and told me that I had something serious to say, and it really left an impact. And then it was like, all right, cool. Now what's the next open mic? And kind of chased after it like an addict.
So you just practiced.
I started finding better open mics with more people. I would be inspired by people that were there. You know, I'd see somebody do a piece and I'd be like, all right, I'm gonna write better. I'm gonna come back the next open mic and you know, that in a competition. I played sports growing up and, you know, part of you know, part of life for me is that competition. So I would see other people perform and it's like, all right, I'm going to try to match that or do better. The slam poetry that I would do where you're in a competition where you're trying to beat them. You know, I thrive
that's what
off
slam poetry is.
I thrive off of that type of competition. But I surrounded myself with really talented people and to push my talent level. You know what I mean? And I started going open mic to open mic and networking and kind of went after it like, you know, like I was getting high, like, you know, like a drug addict in the streets, you know, only putting it into something that was positive. And, you know, that was like my freedom there. And, you know, it was just, it's been a crazy journey to think back at, you know, in 2009 is when I first hit a stage and like the platform, everything that has really been built off these little words that I write that help me get through what I'm getting through. And it gave me a crazy platform. I've won like awards. I put a book out. I've created business opportunities. Like, you know, if I told you the response from my friends when I said I was going to do this poetry thing and the laughs that they have for me and cracking jokes on like, oh, you can't be serious. And, you know, I've been able to see some cool stuff and travel the country and all this fancy things.
So take us back a little bit. I want to know a little bit about, you know, growing up. When you start using, what was your progression?
I mean, my progression was fast. I mean, I come from a broken home. I went through 4 high schools because I was a great kid. I mean, I got into drugs at a really young age. The first thing I ever did was smoke a cigarette when I was 12. I was heavily influenced by peer pressure. So like, not that it was ever said, it was like, if we were hanging out and you hand me a cigarette, I'd be like, all right, if I don't smoke this, you're going to make fun of me. All these things that aren't real would run through my mind. And, you know, first time I smoked, kid passed the cigarette to a few of us, and one by one we lit it, coughing like coughing on the corner, thinking we were cool kids.
Right, right.
And that was like what it was for everything. Like the next it was alcohol, then it was weed. Then we started dabbling in like mushrooms and acid. And fell in love with ecstasy my freshman year. Got kicked out of 2 schools. Stopped using drugs my sophomore year, and my junior year I got introduced to OxyContin when I started partying again. And I got kicked out of my mother's house. Bounced from couch to couch, sleeping in basements. Kicked out of my 3rd school, ended up in New Hampshire for a little bit. Just I wasn't really a good drug addict. I wasn't a good drug dealer. I was a monkey that sold bananas. I used to sell and thinking I was this big drug dealer, and I did all my profits. And, unfortunately consequences hit real soon, real young. And I progressed to heroin. I was like one of the first people out of like the group of kids I hung around with to do heroin. When I was 19 years old, my best friend hung himself, and I was sleeping on the couch and had to take him down. Oh. And then I was trying to escape the images and the nightmares and stuff like that. And while I was getting high, I didn't expect living past 21. I didn't really think I was gonna ever amount to anything. And unfortunately, at that time, people didn't talk about drug addicts or addiction the way they do now. Like early on, my parents were like, we can't have you around. One, because I was a thief. So anytime I was around, my sticky fingers was taking something. But like they couldn't go to people and be like, hey, my son's an addict, because they would get shamed. And it wasn't like, it really wasn't anything that they really did, And unfortunately, it just progressed, and I hit rock bottom at a very young age, and I'm extremely grateful that it happened at that young age, because I got clean when I was 21. I look at friends now that 35, 36, 37 years old, still in the grips, calling me from jail, like, yo, when I get out, it's gonna be different. And unfortunately, the last few times they were out, nothing changes. And when nothing changes, nothing changes. So I hit rock bottom. I was homeless, burned every bridge around me till I was on an island. My family wouldn't pick up the phone for me. I had a heavy court case of Class A distribution hanging over my head. And I was on this suicide mission that I just didn't want to live anymore. So every night, whatever I got went into my arm. And I hoped by the morning time, I wouldn't wake up. Right. Now you're talking heroin, not the stuff that's out there now. The stuff that's out there now is like, that's a whole different ball game. That like I'm blessed that the drugs that were around when I was using didn't kill me. Like I'm beyond grateful for that. Right. Because if I ran the way I ran then, now I'm not sure I'm sitting in the seat with you. Right. So, but after hitting rock bottom, I went to a halfway house. I was like one of the youngest kids in the house. And, life's like I started seeing things differently. My entire life, my entire childhood was all based around drugs, selling, partying. In the halfway house, we went to the beach every Saturday. 4 guys, like throwing the football around, talking nonsense, jumping in the water, trying to hit on girls. Like, because when I'm getting high, I had no interest in anything but, me nodding. So, right. But I started learning these, like, how to have fun without using. I started playing basketball again. I started playing sports that I enjoyed doing. The writing, I was writing a lot. And you started like rediscovering life and, try to apply different things moving forward. And like, I'm grateful that I had those consequences, the family that cut me off, the tough love. And like, I went through probably one of the hottest halfway houses at the time in the state of Mass. So
did you use any programs, like any 12-step?
In the beginning I did. I moved away from it for a while, where the poetry ended up being like my meeting would be on stage, where like I got the freedom to speak. More recently I've actually gotten back into it, especially with like the forced isolation. But early on it was A and NA. It wasn't like I was isolated to one fellowship. I went to meetings, but what I was getting out of it, when I started doing like the poetry stuff, I was getting something different. It like sparked like the creative side of me, and being around people that were doing that. And that's like something that helped me in my recovery, especially early on. So I kind of went away from it, but I didn't do like the 12 steps or anything. So.
Okay.
I have paperwork when I started, when I was like 19 years old in Bridgewater, where I started working on it. And it's crazy to look at the entitled, blame everybody else and some of the writing. So, you know.
So, I mean, I love to hear from people that, you know, didn't use the traditional methods, you know,
No, absolutely.
because there's lots of people out there that, you know, it doesn't work for, they don't want to go, you know, and it's good to know that like there's other ways.
Yeah.
And like,
but you know, especially with the time that we're going through right now, where it's like forced isolation, I found myself like, you know, getting like pulled back for that connection, the lack of connection that you know, that I had when I was performing. And like we work in treatment. Treatment's not recovery. Like working in the field does not guarantee you have good recovery whatsoever. And, you know, more recently through some struggles that I was dealing with, not that I'm like heavily involved every single night, but I've started going to some meetings, going to a men's meeting, you know, that we're starting on Thursday and trying to get reconnected in a way that, you know, sometimes you take for granted when you have a little bit of time. And one of the things that I learned to stay clean was preventive measures, and not saying that I'm going to get high or not. I mean, that's always a possibility, but through some of the things that I've went through recently, you get tested. I had some real lows recently, and you know, you take for granted certain things in your network, and my network has carried me through some of the toughest times of my life.
Yeah, I don't really know the whole story, obviously, and we don't have to go into it. But you know, you were very, very involved at a treatment center locally. And whatever happened. But I just couldn't believe the outpour of love I saw on your Facebook feed. Like people coming out of the woodworks. Just
so this is one of the things that I try to live by. I try to do good by people, and hopefully that good gets returned. You know, I try to put it out there without the expectations it's going to come back. I've been a big voice for the recovery community in Massachusetts, like going to the State House, testifying, sitting with politicians, trying to like battle for like people that can't talk. Like not everybody can be out there sharing like, hey, I'm a heroin addict, or hey, I'm an alcoholic. Like they have their career, there's stigma attached to it, there's shame. So like I took a lot of pride in trying to be that voice. I brought a place to Massachusetts, a treatment center a few years ago, helped build it up. Was heavily involved in there, helped out a lot of people in the community. We're always, you know, I try to be involved in community events. Like I'm a really community-driven Massachusetts, Boston, New England, like, you know, heavily involved with that. And I kind of got blindsided, you know. I'm a family guy. I got full custody of my 12-year-old son. I got a 7-year-old daughter. I worked, and then I took care of my kids. And a lot of people know that's what my character is, you know? So when the certain situation happened, I haven't even really said anything about it. And people already knew, you know, the support just came out. And like, I'll tell you that, like, the ups and downs of the aftermath of it all.
Oh, that's why it's called
Bam,
Aftermath.
Yeah. So, you know, I had some real soul searching to do. And then in the midst, I'm dealing with like probably one of the worst experiences of my life that like I was not prepared for. Like I just did not see what had happened coming. And then there's one torment and anger and all these other things. Then there's this other side that's like, so many people reached out. Like I just try to do. And that was a moment where it was like, you know, when you start thinking of how much you give back, or like the people that went through the center, or the lives from like poetry. Like when I put my book out, I used to meet whoever wanted to buy it. I would drive you to the book, shake your hand, sign it. So I got to meet a ton of people that like, you know, were fans or that supported me. So I have all these like really genuine personal connections. And like, it was like a volcano of it right after, like, oh, you know,
so
ABC
that made it all worth
D,
it.
That helped me through some of the hardest times. Not saying that it didn't. It got, you know, has some very low points. You know, I try not to have a victim mentality, but then there was some moments like, how the hell did this happen? Like, you feel like I felt like I lost it all at one point. I'm like, you know, talking to my son about selling the house, and like, this is going to be a tough period of time. But like, one of the things about recovery is the resiliency factor. You know what I mean? Like, you can put anything in front of me. Getting clean from my addiction and the struggles that I went through, to me, you can't put something in front of me that I'm not going to destroy, get around, get over it. Like, I am going, whatever obstacle you put in my path, I'm going to crush it. And that's something that's like deep rooted from getting clean, from having failures in recovery, from having heartbreak, from successes. And like, this is just another obstacle for me that I have to get over. And I am blessed for the network that I have. Like, I had one of my best friends drove down from New Hampshire, Christina Cola, and was with me, you know, the second he heard, hopped in the car, no questions asked, leaning, leaning, angry tears, wanting to, lose my mind. And I just had people like, yo, you're going to be okay. Like, this is something that will turn out to be your biggest blessing, which it has. Like, I am beyond grateful that, people's true colors were shown. And the fact is, I wouldn't be in the situation I'm in now if, something like that didn't happen. I probably would have stuck around there, compared to like now it gave like a rebirth, which is the Phoenix for the logo, and rising out of the ashes of the aftermath of everything that I had to go through. So the symbolism of it, I did a presentation the other day, and they were like, "Oh, is this related to Dr. Dre?" And I go, "No." I get that. I love hip hop, so I do understand that, and that was something I weighed when I was thinking. Right. But I didn't think there was a more fitting name for the program on a personal level, and then for everybody that, we're rising out of the aftermath of our addiction. Right. You know what I mean? Out of the wreckage, and the Phoenix. The Phoenix is like, you're shedding a former self into this beautiful new form, and that's what recovery is. Right. So like, you have to burn it all down. Yeah. Burn it to the ground, and be reborn in the fire. Right. And as a writer, I use those terms a lot. Like, I use Phoenix, rising out of the ashes. Like, those are like common things that I use in my writing. So when we were crafting like the treatment center I just opened, when we were looking at like names and kind of trying to put all the pieces together, it just fit. So tell us a little bit about the treatment center. It's in Wakefield. It's in Wakefield. It's right on the lake. I couldn't tell you the name of the lake. It's Lake Quinniponset or something. I just call it Wakefield Lake. It's beautiful. I walk my dogs around there all the time. The office park that our office is in is right on that lake. It's Aftermath Addiction Treatment Center. Is it a PHP? PHP, okay. IOP, and OP in Massachusetts. There's no housing. It's just a straight outpatient clinic. Yep. The thing that I feel separates us from others is the approach, the people that we have in there. We're all, people that are in recovery. We have like a genuine drive to help people get better. And there's a clinical aspect, and you mix in with the personal experience that I've gone through, that Jenna, that Cody, Joe Papa. I mean, our staff is like, we want to be in the trenches with you. Right. And it's that family feel and trying to build a community that, I was known for building a certain type of culture at the last place. And it's about culture. It's about feeling welcomed. Like, I know when I was getting clean, I would end up in emergency rooms, strung out, smelling funky, and everybody looking at me like I was a scumbag. And it's like, I already know I'm not the best human being. Like, I want help. Right. So when you get to places, hearing that the chances of you succeeding, or the statistics, or all that negativity, it's like, one of the things about opening a center, it's like we want to embrace you and have you believe in yourself that you can do that. And like, I mean, from my experience too, when you're at a place and like the director's going to come talk to you. Oh yeah. And like, talk to you and tell you why you should stay and what you have to offer. That goes a long way. It goes a long way. And I run groups. I mean, I try to be involved. Like, at the last place, I knew every single person that went through the door. The new place, like, I want to be the first person that meets, shakes your hand, learns about you. Like, what can I do to try to help you, or use my experience in whatever way. And having that aspect. Most places have some suit and tie guy running around that doesn't care less. They're not involved in somebody. And, I feel like some of the better centers, because there definitely a bunch of them around this area where people genuinely care and they're invested and they want to be there. And that's just, that's something that I want to be. I want to be in the trenches side by side with you. Right. Yeah. I mean, for me working in the field, I there's kind of two sides of it, like whether you want to, be one of the
administrators, or you want to be like, I'm going to school to be a clinician. So like, I like running the groups, and I like being one-on-one with the clients. Like I really do. And like I found out that's definitely my passion.
Good.
Yeah.
No, it's huge.
Yeah.
Well, there's something about seeing somebody and like at a place like ours where they're like out of detox, the world might be crumbling on them. We had a former client. Wife had no idea he was using. Gonna sell the house, can't see the kids, getting a divorce, broken, right? Just hugged me in tears, like I don't know what's going on. And he has like 4 years clean now. Like, and you see on that early stage where it's like the world's falling apart. And it's just like, dude, if you stay clean, like I can't promise you anything. Because that's, but if you stay clean, watch everything get better. Now he went from the program to a sober house. Then the wife let him in the big bed. I mean, on the couch first.
Okay.
And then let him into the big bed. And I remember he called me and he was like, yo, she let me in the big bed.
You're like,
but it was like, that's, it's the baby steps and seeing somebody progress like that. And then they get to, you get to experience life and, giving back. And like he's helped so many people too. And it's like, you gotta just keep trying to inspire the next person to do better, because like we've lost entirely too many people. There's too many people struggling out there. And especially at a time like this where it's like forced isolation, going back to like what I was going through. So you have lows and now you can't, there's no outlets. There's no like, hey, let's take your mind off something by going to a Celtics game. Oh, nope.
Right.
Can't do that.
Right. I know.
Like there's so many restrictions on what's going on right now. And like forced isolation is the opposite of recovery.
Right.
Recovery is connection and building with people and having like people that genuinely love and care about you to be there for you. And it's like, oh, nope.
Right.
You can't gather, you can't do this, you can't do that. So
it's tough. I don't know, people that are coming in the halls now, God bless them, trying to like find recovery on a Zoom meeting. It can definitely be done. Like if you want it, you can find it.
No, absolutely.
But
but it's just a really difficult time. I give anybody a lot of credit that's trying to fight for it right now. And anybody that's struggling, keep battling. It's well worth it.
For sure. So is there anything else that you want to say? We're winding down, so.
I know, we're down to the final minute. AftermathAddictionTreatmentCenter.com is the website. Find us on Facebook if you want to look up some of like my poetry. Matt Ganem, the poet. You can follow me on Facebook. It's been an honor. I always love, talking shop and we'll see wherever the conversation goes and hopefully somebody can take something from it. But thank you for having me on.
Yeah.
It's been a blessing.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah. So.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you next time.
The preceding program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.